I've actually waited nearly a year for this conversation, so I'm really delighted to introduce you to Peter Tumminello. Peter is a homeopath from Sydney, Australia, whose work really stood out to me because of his research into crystal structures, their relationship to the human psyche, and how he uses this therapeutically with his patients, creating remedies. Here are the highlights to that talk. Before we get into the crystals, I wanted to ask you, how do you see the relationship between the healer, the patient, and the remedy itself? Because I'm guessing it's more than matching a remedy to the patient.
It's a great question with many dimensions to it. So, and this for me, in the light of how you've introduced me, uh, this for me is an important thing. And because I'm really intimate with all the crystals, having found many of them and experimenting with them on myself, they all hold this very personal dimension. So I've had a personal experience that sometimes has been absolutely um, central in me understanding what to do with a client.
Mm.
At other times, it's information that I've learned from others. But there is a problem with homeopathic practice in that about the relationship of remedies and people.
Mm.
So, and homeopaths themselves, I mean. So some homeopaths see it very technically, and if they can do a mind map and find out how a remedy connects to a person, a situation, they're happy. Things meld in um, a diagrammatic way.
Mhm.
Whereas if you've had an experience with it, it's more viscerally felt. And sometimes that experience is not just, it can be the experience with yourself, the meeting ground that you have between yourself and the remedy. Or it could be in experiences that you've had with clients because of walking so closely with the client through the experience, as a homeopath would normally do. So there's quite a difference in the perception and sensing of what a remedy is and how it relates. I must say that there's, for me, I'm uh, I'm moving back. I'm moving
Mm.
back to the personal connection with the remedy, because I believe that that does actually set up a field that attracts people who need that remedy to you. Yeah. So I find that much more rewarding and has a higher quality of resonance and unfolding for yourself than knowing about a lot of remedies. Yeah.
Mm.
I must say, under all this, the intention to heal is paramount. So the fact that your heart is in the healing, I think that's the fundamental requirement. And from there, everything will happen. But the link with your own energetic field is, I find, very valuable, and I don't want to be without it. Yeah.
Mm. Well, when we briefly spoke last year, you mentioned going into the bush is how you get your insights for your work, almost
Uh,
like in a shamanic way. And
yeah.
is this where you kind of realized that crystals could be used as remedies, or how did you actually start to realize that crystals could be used?
So I was just discussing this with someone the other day. I'm just about to go back to the place where it all started.
Okay.
So what happened was 35 years ago now, um, I went on a trip and to Fossick to find some crystals. Yeah. And I went with my partner, and and that process of fossicking and finding them isn't easy. define really nice things. You have to extend yourself a little. Anyway, so here I am with my arm inserted under a bank of earth and stone. And I'm feeling with the tips of my fingers, and I'm concentrating to see if I can feel one of the crystals in there. And because it's about 30 or 40 centimeters in. And so as I'm focusing, images start to appear in my closed eye vision, and I see a crystal or two appear. Anyway, as we stay in this place, we're there for a week, it just became stronger and stronger, and every time I closed my eyes, I could see a crystal. I didn't even know their names. And I ended up, I said to my partner, every time I close my eyes, I can see these crystals come, sort of like I'm in a museum and at a crystal show. Anyway, so it was just an interesting phenomenon. I must say, at the end of the week, I did have and soon after, I had some interesting experiences in my dreams and images and visions with some Aboriginals. And one of them was definitely connected to the crystals because they had a crystal in their field. That was in 1990. 4 years later, I was meditating in the bush in an area not that far away from where I was the first instance, and I had a vision. And I talk all about that vision in 12 Joules in the introduction. And so I was introduced, a crystal made itself known to me. And in a profound way.
Mm.
So I'll just reiterate it. It's interesting. So I'm sitting there, all of a sudden the vision appears, and the vision is a tree in the distance. It's about 100 metres away. But it's an enigmatic tree. It's large and fulsome. And I think, oh, this is really cool. And I say, oh, it's the tree of life. And I say to myself, and a voice comes and says, the eternal tree. And as the voice speaks, I'm taken out of my body up to the root of the tree, and it's made out of a crystal.
Mm.
And that crystal, I didn't even know what it was. I just knew it was pink. I knew what it looked like. So, I come out of the meditation, I'm pretty excited. And so I knew that there was a crystal shop about 200 kilometres away. So I packed my car and go straight to the crystal shop. I have breakfast. And I turn up at the crystal shop and I say to the lady, I was the only person in the shop because it's right out in the country. I say to the lady, now, I'm looking for a pink crystal. What have you got? She said, well, I've got rhodochrosite and I've got rhodonite. And she said, here's the rhodochrosite. I said, oh, it's not that. And she said, no, on the rhodonite, she said, I did have some here, but I just can't find it. Anyway, after about 15 minutes, we're both looking around, she brings up something from the back of the cabinet. She said, oh, look, it fell behind the cabinet. Here it is. I said, that's it, I'll take it. I didn't even ask the price, So I knew that because of the profound way in which it came, that it was meant to be proved. So I took it back. I had a proving group already going in Sydney. And I took it back and we did a proving on it. And that's how the whole thing unfolded from there. Yeah.
It sounds to me, obviously, the crystal called you, but you
Correct.
also had to answer the call. And, to answer the call, I think one has to have a certain amount of uh, awareness and attention and some kind of self-practice that makes them able to perceive something that's not just what we see in front of our eyes. So how much would you say is that important for someone who is dealing with the healing arts? You know, how much work do they have to do on themselves to be able to listen to these messages?
So some people get, some people get messages, some people don't, and some people get a lot of messages.
Mm,
Um, I don't think that one has to get messages to do well, to be to make a difference, to make a real difference.
mm,
But I do believe that you do have to work on yourself. So whatever practice you do, and I think it does need to be a daily practice. Yeah,
mm,
there's some sort of daily practice, whether it's some sort of attunement, uh, if it's just time alone, a walk alone, some sort of attunement through some sort of spiritual practice that you do every day and that's as important to you as eating and drinking and sleeping,
mm.
then I think the connections start, yeah,
Yeah.
and develop. I think it's the commitment to it that's really, really important.
Mm. And the
And it does give you a superior view and other abilities in your practice if you do that. And in yourself, I mean, you just containing yourself around seeing lots of clients is an effort
mm,
and an ability that you develop over many years. So it helps that, if nothing else.
yeah. I mean, you've mentioned your book, 12 Jewels, and you then have a later book called Psyche and Structure. And there you connect crystal structures with personality and
Mm,
psychological patterns.
mm.
So, how would you explain the relationship between the crystal shape and human psychology?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing. So this was discovered by a crystal healer, a European crystal healer, a German named Michael Ginger. So he discovered this idea. And what happened was that he had a friend who would only collect fluorite crystals. I think you've got fluorite crystals there in the UK.
Okay.
Um, yeah, they come from a mine in the northern part of the UK. I think they're quite famous. So fluorite crystals are octahedrons. So
Hmm.
an octahedron is a pyramid and another pyramid on the base, yeah? 8 sides. So his friend only wanted to collect these octahedral fluorite crystals. And he thought about this friend and he thought this person has a very definite psychology. Yeah. And that is, he's very one pointed. You can rely on him. He's down to earth. He's loyal and he is pretty black and white as a person, the way he lives, got a certain sense of rules and, this is how it works. And so that crystal, the fluorite crystal, has a certain pattern to it. It has a crystal structure, and that is called cubic. Yeah. In other words, the internal patterning of that crystal, the various axes that define that crystal, uh, that is the mathematical axis or geometric axis, um, always form a cube. He thought maybe this has got something to do with all the cubic crystals. And so he
Mm,
started to do research into it with other people that did well with various crystals. And he found it was true, yeah, that people who need cubic crystals, and fluorite's not the only one, diamond is another one, garnet is another one. People who need those have a certain typology in the psyche, which is very much what I just mentioned. They tend to be black and white, no right from wrong. Um, they tend to be perfectionist. They tend to be straight up and down when it comes to dealing with them. Yeah. Um, so he worked that out for all the other crystal structures. There are 7 linear structures and one structure that isn't a structure, say amorphous, doesn't have a shape.
mm.
That's like the wild card in the pack. We need
Right.
one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, what kind of personality type are they?
Oh, they're the opposite to what I just mentioned.
Okay.
They're off the wall. Can't pin them down at all. But it's an interesting state. Not many people live in this. It's very, very hard to live in.
Mm.
Most people go into that state when they're going through a transformation, you know, when they're having to leave something behind. You know. And but a few people live inside of it, but they are usually exceptional individuals, yeah, that have a very free flowing creative dynamic in their life. Yeah.
Maybe
You don't
revolutionaries?
know. Revolutionaries are a little bit different. They could be. It could be that,
Mm.
but they'd be anarchical, yeah, probably.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And but these people are more like people. There's a great film that uh, explains this or that models this, and that's the film about the high wire walker.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
called Man on Wire.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
seen it?
No, I've seen the advert for it. Yeah.
Have a look. It is the most profound film. And that man lives in the amorphous
Mm.
realm. Yeah. So, willing to do anything, try anything, and go beyond the bounds of what anybody thought was possible. Yeah.
Mm.
In any way.
What are the crystals that express it?
Obsidian is one.
Oh.
Doesn't have any crystal structure in it. So obsidian is formed by the glass that comes out straight out of a volcano in the first instance, and it's really hot. It comes out into the outside, so it doesn't have time to crystallize.
Mm.
It's just silica, like quartz or smoky quartz. Yeah. But because it doesn't have time to crystallize, it just forms this glassy mass. Yeah. And so it doesn't have any crystal structure in it. And so obsidian is one. Another one that everybody knows is opal. So
Mm.
all opals are amorphous, all obsidian is amorphous, and there are other things like, even though it's not a crystal as such, amber is amorphous.
Oh,
Mm. Yeah,
we get that here. Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, what about some other, some other personalities and crystal structures?
Yeah, so these structures grade from being very fixed in the cubic to
Mm.
being more and more not orderly. Yeah, they go
Yeah.
from very orderly to being very disorderly. Yeah?
Mm.
And they go from being very fixed to very dynamic. And they go from on the left side being very thinking based, they're primarily thinkers, to being feeling based on the
Yeah.
right side if we go towards amorphous. Yeah.
Mm.
So it doesn't mean that ones on the left side don't have feelings. They do. It's just not how they process life in the first instance. Yeah. And it's not as if the ones on the right side, the ones that have a lot of movement, don't have a mind or a good mind. It's just that they process things
Mm.
primarily through their feelings. Yeah. So you asked me about one or the others, one of the other remedies, structures. So an interesting one, and one that really was an avenue for me to move into it most strongly, was there's a structure called orthorhombic. It's the diamond shape. Yeah? It's not a diamond, and it's got nothing to do with diamonds. It's just the diamond shape. Okay,
Mm.
it's
Right.
geometric shape, and in that shape, that's for people who I give each of these a motif. So their motif is I feel. So the first thing that happens to them is that when something happens around them or when someone says something, they feel it
Mm.
as the initial response. And so often that feeling process is a percolation. It goes through their inner feeling body. Yeah. And that takes time and energy for it to sort of settle in. It's sort of got to percolate in and sort of settle into place. Yeah. And so they might not respond very quickly. There's the sort of person who you ask a question, they go, yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. And they're just letting it percolate through the feeling. And so they might come across as being not very sharp,
Mm.
or not being very on the money or in the moment. Their downside is that everything can get caught in the feeling. And when they're traumatized, and they do tend to trauma, when they're traumatized, everything just gets locked up in the feeling and they close down on the outside.
Yeah.
If they're in a good space, they process the feeling and come up with something that comes right out of their gut, something they feel very, very strongly, and they know because they feel it strongly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the others. There are many of them, and there are many subtle differences between them. And to learn them is a job. If any of you who listen to this or see this are thinking of getting into this, don't do it lightly. You really have to study it well. To be able to do it as a clinician, you have to study it well. It's quite the process. And in my book, I talk about various artistic things that one can do to understand each of the structures. And so there are various people you can read about, like uh, relatively famous people. And there are various movies you can see because um, directors and writers who really tune in and write something out of the depths of their experience
Yeah.
almost always express a structure, one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can learn off many. There are many wonderful films that are in popular distribution that you can see after you see the film. If you really sit with it, you've learnt the structure. Yeah. I did a lot of that while I was writing the book on structures. So,
So
for instance, I'll just say one other thing. There's
yeah, please.
one of the structures is very artistic. Yeah. Anyway, it's called monoclinic. It's about self-expression. Anyway, so, I'd see a biopic of a monoclinic person, it might be Frida Kahlo, yeah, the artist. I say, oh, wow, she is really monoclinic. And then I'd see someone else, some musician who was really monoclinic. And then I'd watch something of some other artist. And after a while, I started to get bored. I thought, another monoclinic artist, it's just like, there's just so many of them because they're so good at expressing themselves and they have
Mm.
to do it. They can't help themselves. It's like their life mission. That's what they must do to be
Mm.
a human being. Yeah.
So, just for those who are listening, like myself, who are not homeopaths, I mean, what
Mm.
I understand is that you treat like for like, but if someone was wanting, let's say they wanted to be more, to be able to express themselves more, um, would you have to find out what their essence is and then give them a crystal that relates to that, or like some other modalities might actually see what it is that they're wanting to become and give them a remedy or whatever it is
Got to
that
help
they
them
get.
become that.
But yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So how would you?
It depends on how they express themselves.
Mhm.
So primarily in homeopathy, we go to where they are
Mm.
and work with that. So people say, oh, I can't express myself when I have to in my work. There's a group and we're at a meeting and I can't really get it across everything that I know and understand in an effective way. Yeah.
Mm.
And what
Mm.
happens is I get very nervous beforehand. Yeah. So we'd give them a remedy for that. And that's the traditional homeopathic way, and still is and always will be. So you take the person from where they're at. But some people will come in and they'd say, like, I'm doing this work and I'd really like to go to the next level. I'd really like to develop my ability to speak at a higher level. Yeah.
Mm.
So I'm really effective. Yeah? And so people really notice. and hear what I have to say in the best way. So what they're looking for is an incremental or a positive upgrade of what they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in those cases, yes, there are certain remedies that you can take. I don't know if they stick as well. They probably do. You just have to keep taking it for a while to
Mm,
like learn the new skill. Yeah. And that's particularly true of gemstones more
mm.
than standard homeopathics. Yeah. So in gemstone healing, there's a tradition that, if you want something, you can have it. You take the gem that transmits a quality. Yeah.
Yeah, and many Vedic astrologers will use gemstones when they'll prescribe a gemstone to go with your chart. But as a homeopath, how do you deliver the remedy, which is a stone? In which format does it come?
I can come in any format. So generally speaking, it's through the remedy, through the crystal made up into a potency, homeopathic potency. And I always use immersion remedies. So
Okay.
the immersion technique is you don't destroy the crystal. So you put the crystal in water, you expose it to the sun and moon for 24 hours, and then you
Okay.
potentize the water. So it's getting the whole of the crystal.
Yeah.
You know? So I always use immersion remedies because I don't want to destroy any crystals. I started off doing diamonds and rubies and pearls and emeralds. There's just no way I was going to crush up a high quality ruby to make it into a
Yeah.
remedy. Well, forget it.
Yeah.
It would be a terrible waste, and it seems like an affront to the ruby.
Mm.
I was using high quality stones for all of this. And, am I going to crush up a high quality diamond? No,
No.
I'm not going to do it. So the other way is to do it that way, to triturate them. So in homeopathy, you'll get trituration stones and you'll get immersion stones. I've
Hmm.
done all the immersion. Well, every stone I've done has been an immersion stone. So there's a potentization process either from the ground up stone, which I don't use, and
Yeah.
um, the one where you get the water that's been taken from the stone, and
Mm.
then it gets potentized up by the normal homeopathic method. So it's dilution and succussion, and you could look this up somewhere if you want to find out more about it.
Sure.
People
Yeah.
who are watching, and so that's given in the little white pills or in drops. Yeah, so that's the way I normally do it. However, if someone is really sensitive, even carrying the stone will start to
Yeah.
do the business. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
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 So without a doubt, yeah, if they're sensitive, and I've seen people, always wanting to wear a particular stone. And if that's the case, usually they're using it and they're actually getting it as a remedy.
Hmm.
Not a few cases where I've been able to get on to what to give a person through what they wear because they're deeply attracted to it and want to wear it all the time. I've had the cure of pretty serious illnesses just by people carrying the stone.
Mm.
Very serious
And
illness.
how does your view of homeopathy sit with the broader homeopathic systems that exist?
Well, my view of homeopathy is very, very similar to many homeopaths, because
Mm.
it all rests on the simillimum and the single remedy. You know? So
Right.
you use one remedy at a time, and it
Mm.
has to be the remedy that matches the person, their situation, their symptomatology. So that's widely accepted through homeopathy, where it's classic homeopathy. The ways of using it are many. And so there are many. There are a number of people around the world who have created different systems whereby that you can access that one essential system of prescribing, which is classic homeopathy. So,
Mm.
there's a system that uses a sort of almost mathematical understanding of how remedies appear in nature. There's another system that's based on botanics, yeah, and the
Mm.
botanical families. There another system based on someone's idea of miasms, so the root causes of disease. So yeah, there are many of these different systems, and the system that I use is is essentially based on the structures. I use color a lot also. I'm
Hmm.
always looking for the predominant color that is in a person's field, that usually the one that they're attracted to. And nowadays, I'm using Chinese medicine principles as well. Yeah. So it's very personally mine. Probably no one else practices homeopathy like that. Yeah. I've written 5 books, but I've written 2 major ones, well, the 12 Jewels and Psyche and Structure. So if I do another book, it will be a major book.
You're working on that now. Can you tell us a little bit about that? No.
Really, I'm in the midst of it. It's about the integration of the principles of life force in Chinese medicine with homeopathy and classic homeopathic practice. Been in the background for me ever since I started doing natural therapy. So that's the only reason why I went with Chinese medicine, and probably there are all sorts of karmic reasons. But
Okay. Yeah.
I
Mm.
do love it. There is a special crossover with homeopathy because we have similar diagnostic processes.
Mm.
Not the same, there's big divergence on some levels. Yeah, because of the lack of appreciation of the depth and breadth of what the vital force is
Yeah.
in homeopathy. It's only brought to light by the Eastern traditions, either the yogic tradition or the Chinese tradition, which is roots out of a Buddhist
Mm.
background and a shamanistic background.
Mm.
That's the big thing with the Chinese, that they have that shamanic part is very strong. And I'm trying to meld those two. And I'm having a
It's a
lot of
big job.
people that I know.
And now you're in the depths of it, so you can't you can't
Yeah,
stop.
I can't go back. It's one of those
Yeah.
destiny. You know how destiny is.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Mm.
do as well. Do you have any plans to come to the Northern Hemisphere?
Uh, Not right at the moment. Probably when I've finished that, I will come. Yeah. If the world is in any semblance of good order.
Yes, that's a good point. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you do come this way. And I really want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out to talk because I know that you're extremely busy. Um, if any of you would like to find out more about Peter, I'm going to put his details, his books, his website in the details section below. So please do have a look at that. And Peter, thank you again for joining me today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Natasha, and hope you all enjoyed this and get into using crystals there. I wonder.
If anyone thought that a crystal was just a rock, I hope that this makes them see it differently.
If you thought that, you've got another thing coming.
Yeah, exactly.